But even in the US, if you look back, the older generation, you look at people in their 50s, 60s, they'll tell you that they grown up. They didn't have shoe like, I'm looking at my kid nowadays. They have all these shoes, but I'm looking at even my generation, my parent generation, maybe your parent generation, people who grew up in the 60s and 50s, they would love to be outside, play barefoot. That's what we are built. That's what we are, the human body designed to do. It's just nowadays, it's just the fact that we have been told, we have the preconceived notion that we need shoe, we need support, we need cushion for everything we do in life.
What's up, guys? Thank you for tuning in to this episode of the podcast. Before we start, this is a quick announcement to let you guys know that I'm dropping bonus episodes on Auxoro Premium. For less than $5 per month when you sign up for the year, you get a 2-hour bonus episode every month of my show, The Aux, that covers exciting and sometimes twisted topics like MK Ultra, the COVID lab leak hypothesis, Tim Dillon, Tom Cruise, the Tuskegee experiment, the obesity epidemic, and more. You also get monthly solo episodes with my takes on drugs, sex, money, creativity, mindfulness, and you have the ability to submit topic suggestions for both of my shows, The Aux and the Auxoro podcast. Expect 3 hours of new exclusive podcast content per month, including access to all archived episodes found nowhere else but Auxoro Premium. Visit auxoro.supercast.com to sign up today. This is the best deal in podcasting. 3 hours of exclusive podcast content to punch you in the motherfucking mouth every month for less than $5. No half-assed episodes here. Go to auxoro.supercast.com to join the premium gang today. What's going on, guys? This time I sat down with Vincent Vu of Kinis Shoes. And no, I did not mean that to rhyme, but it did. Let me tell you a little bit about the background of this episode and why I chose to talk to Vincent for this, hour and a half long conversation. So about a year and a half ago, I bought my first pair of Kinis shoes. I bought the Kinis Nomad Lights, the Nomad Lights, and these are a pair of barefoot shoes. They look like socks and they have a harder rubber-like bottom underneath, and we'll get into all the biomechanics of barefoot walking and the actual Kevlar-like material that these barefoot shoes are made out of. But I'm going to talk about my experience first. So I bought the Nomad Lights, which are they look like sock shoes. They kind of look like socks from far away. And I was training Muay Thai outside at the time. So I was practicing Muay Thai outside with my trainer, Houston Ariaga. Shout out to Houston. And I was training in sneakers, but I didn't like training in sneakers because if I kicked Houston, that hurts with sneakers. And it just didn't feel good because I was training outside in the park and my sneakers were slipping. And also you can't really teep people in the stomach with hard bottom sneakers. It's just not fair for me to train in sneakers against someone, especially when we're sparring. And I was looking for other options, and I came across the Nomad Lights made by Kinis, and it completely changed the game because I tried just barefoot before that, and I was stepping on acorns in Prospect Park. I was training Muay Thai. I was, doing switch kicks and stepping into my jab, and I was trying barefoot at first, and I kept stepping on acorns and shouting F-bombs in a park full of kids. It's just not good. So I put on the Nomad Lights, and I started to have unbelievable training sessions outside. I would bring them with me every time I went to Prospect Park. I started using them just to walk around in the city, in Brooklyn. I would use them when I did my other workouts with kettlebells. Eventually got into steel mace flow. And then I bought the Nomads, which are a little more shoe-like. It has a harder top with still the rubber-like bottom flexibility. And the thing is, guys, my foot pain went away. I used to have a nagging pain under my big toe ever since my basketball days. Ever since my embarrassing basketball days, I had some fractures in my metatarsals and always had this toe pain. And I was walking in these shoes and my foot pain started to go away, and then eventually it went away completely. And I walk around in these barefoot shoes in Brooklyn all the time, and my feet have never felt better. And to be honest, when I first bought the shoes, I didn't know exactly what it was doing to my body. And part of the reason why I had Vincent on the podcast and what you're about to listen to is the science and biomechanics and Vincent's experience making these barefoot shoes and why they work the way they do, why modern day shoes are fucking us up so much, why the artificial support is so bad for us. We'll talk about Vincent's journey as a refugee from Vietnam when he escaped Vietnam with his family and eventually made his way to the United States. We get into all of that. And I have no affiliation with Kinis Shoes other than I'm good friends with Dave Robinson, who reps the brand. I now know Vincent as a result of this podcast, but I don't have any sort of affiliation. I'm not making money from people buying Kinis Shoes. I simply just wanted to spread the joy and support, physical, literal physical support that these shoes have given me. And hopefully other people will listen to this podcast and go check out the shoes on kinis.com. It's KINIS.com. It's KINIS.com. And without further ado, please enjoy this conversation with Vincent Vu. That also did not mean that to rhyme. Maybe I did a little bit that time. Either way, I hope you enjoy this conversation. Vincent Vu, founder of Kinis, thank you for joining me. I really do appreciate it.
Thank you so much, Zach, for inviting me to the podcast. I'm super excited to share the Kinis story with everyone.
Of course. So before we actually get into the Kinis story, I was reading that you spent 6 years in a refugee camp when you were a young kid. And a lot of the conversation around refugees, especially in the U.S., has become very heated and politicized. And it's a lot of people that were born in the United States, like myself, talking about the experiences of refugees and what they go through. But we don't actually hear from a lot of refugees themselves who have come to the U.S. So I wanted to ask you if you could tell the story of how you became a refugee and what that was like, going through that with your family.
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, my family originally from Vietnam. My mom and myself and my little brother. Let's go back before we actually escaped the country. So my grandfather fought during the Vietnam War. He fought alongside with the American. So after the collapse of the South Vietnam Army, my mom's side family, my grandfather were killed during the war. At that time, they got into a lot of difficult time after the war, since they was part of the South Vietnam Army. So during that time between 1975 and up to early 1990, a lot of people actually escaped the country. That's wave of immigrant. They call the people the boat people. So
the boat people.
Yes, literally the boat people. So I remember I was 7 at the time, in first grade, and one day my mom just showed up for class and pulled me out in the middle of class. Didn't tell me where we're going and what is it for. I have no idea. The next thing I remember that we are in a little bit south of Saigon in a little canoe along the riverbank with some bottled water with us. Now my mom I was 7 at the time. My brother was like 3.5, and here we are. Still, my mom haven't told us anything where we're going yet. The next thing we know, we are on the little canoe, and then went out further out from the river and into the ocean. There's a boat waiting for us, and we're boarding the boats. And I said, "All right, have no idea." I'm said, "Well, follow my mom instruction." And later on, here we are in the middle of the ocean. So I start to realize here I am in a small boat, fishing boat that designed probably for 10, 15 fishermen. And we cram 165 people on the boat.
And so exactly where you were going at this point, you were on this fishing boat, you were crammed in with other people. Did you have an idea of where you were heading, or was it kind of you were just a kid waiting to hear what your parents were going to say?
We have no idea. I mean, I would thought, I'm just, just waiting for my mom to tell me something. So it's just my mom, me, my mom, my younger brother. And,
That's
and
a very devastating. It's like I'm used to getting pulled out of class for something like a dentist appointment. When my parents would pull me out of class, I would assume I was either in trouble or I had to go to the doctor. So I couldn't imagine if my mom pulled me out of school and she was like, "Hey Zach, by the way, we're leaving the United States on a fishing boat, and I can't tell you where we're going." That must have been pretty crazy going through that experience as a kid.
yeah, I think I would ask a lot of questions if she told me ahead of time, and I'll probably ask, and I'll probably call probably go home and talk to my dad. But the decision was made between my mom and my dad. She always want a better future for us, and I think escaping the country, fighting freedom or prosperity somewhere else is that's the route that she's already made up her mind. So we are on this boat. I still have no idea, and all I remember that during the day, we were told to stay at the bunker, which is where they used to store the fish. So now there's 165 people on the boat, and these are very primitive fishing boat, not a boat that is a wooden boat with
Mm.
very primitive machineries. And I believe now looking back, because now I have the opportunity looking back to some of the footage that were captured by some other folk, and I say, "Oh my God! If I know what I know now, I would never get that boat." Uh, so during the day, we would stay beneath the boat, and I remember there's a lot of people, and a lot of these people are city people. When they decide to escape, the way it worked that your family have to stay behind, pay the boat owner a certain amount of money,
Mm.
and and a lot of people were vomiting everywhere because a lot of people get seasick. They never been in a boat before. Here they are trying to cross the ocean to go to the other side. Um, I don't remember how many days we spent at sea, but luckily that me and my brother we didn't get seasick. We were fine. Um, I remember they hand out this little fruit that you can eat that keep you hydrated, and that's the only thing that we survive upon. At night, we are allowed to get up.
Do you remember what the fruit was that would keep you hydrated?
I don't remember all it is. It's just very watery. It's more like I'll think it's like it's probably it's similar to a pear, if you will. It's a lot of water to keep you hydrated. But that's all we have. They have
Mm.
bags and bags of these things. I guess they know that to keep you
Hmm.
hydrated. So we are heading south now. We're heading south to you have Malaysia, Indonesia, a lot of the other places because during that time there's a lot of refugee camps set throughout Southeast Asia for the Vietnamese who are actually escaping at the time. But we spent, I don't remember how many days we spent at sea, but we end up on an island, a refugee camp. That's where I end up spending about 6 years of my early childhood. But before
Mm.
I talk about the time I spent at this refugee camp, I want to also mention that during that time, I don't know the exact statistic, but a lot of boats end up sinking because they're overcrowded. So
Mm.
I think for every like person made to the island, someone lost their life, and not only that, there are a lot of pirates that happened at the time. I was too young to remember, but all I remember that's this lady in my mom neighborhood. She went on a different boat, and her boat ended up was captured by the pirate. And now a
Mm.
lot of these folks are um, fishermen from other country, if you will, that see the opportunity, knowing a lot of the Vietnamese people are escaping, which they take all the gold and jewelry with them,
Hmm.
um, see the opportunity and board their ship, their boat, and took all the money. Their situation there was a lot of people lost their life during these when these things happen.
So the fishermen that were working around there were actually becoming the pirates. They were watching people leave, and eventually they figured out that these are refugees. They're probably pretty weak. They don't have weapons or anything like that. So they took advantage of the situation.
100%. And these are fishermen from neighboring country. It's unfortunate that these things happen, but that's the fact. But luckily, that didn't happen to our boat. But we know some other boat that happened to. That woman that's raped.
Jeez, did everyone survive on your boat, or what was kind of the energy like? Were people like, could you see people starving? Were there people actually dead? What was kind of the state of people as a whole on your boat specifically?
We not, I mean, we're not starving, but I think we are in a very bad situation, because a lot of these guys, even the captain of the boat, sometimes these guys are not really a licensed captain. You know, these are just normal fishermen. They probably go a couple of miles out of the ocean. But what happened? These guys sometimes they want to go, so the boat owner say, "All right, if you take this X amount of people, you don't have to pay the fee." That's sometimes the structure. It's not so. So a lot of these, so for us, we would survive, but we didn't like, we're not like we have a very comfortable experience. I would tell you it's not the case. But there are, when we arrive at the island, a refugee camp, we have witnessed that many boat in a lot of bad shape. That people who are didn't make it through that very tough journey, if you will.
Yeah. Did or it sounds like whatever you were getting away from and running from in Vietnam, it must have been pretty bad conditions, pretty horrible conditions, because that's an insane amount of trust to put in the structure of a fishing boat, and navigating dangerous waters that are even dangerous without pirates. I'm sure there are a lot of weather conditions and weather things that are happening on the water that could have killed people as well. And it's an insane amount of trust to put into a person who may or may not be a licensed boat captain in order to get to that new place that you're going. It's a lot of faith and a lot of faith. What's up, guys? This is a quick break in the episode to remind you that if you like this conversation, you'll love Auxoro Premium. Go to auxoro.supercast.com to gain access to bonus episodes, the ability to suggest topics, and all premium archives for less than $5 per month. This is the best deal in premium podcasting, motherfucker. Go to auxoro.supercast.com for 3 hours of exclusive podcast content per month. We are allergic to half-assed episodes. Go to auxoro.supercast.com today.
You are correct, and I think up until today, I give credit to my mom. She have a very strong heart and mind in order to take that risk. She's a risk taker, and that's where I see myself where I am now. Looking back, the risk that I'm taking now, the financial risk, the risk of starting the company from nowhere, and we all know 95% start to fail. But I look at that risk and the risk my mom took, which is the most valuable thing in life itself, and my mom took that risk. So that's what else to lose.
So when you actually got to the island and you were living in that refugee camp for 6 years, what was the day-to-day like? What were you seeing? What were the living conditions like? What was the situation as a whole for that time that you spent on that island?
Yeah, I absolutely. So we do the sin is fund. I believe it's funded by through United Nations. So I believe every Wednesday you go. There's a central location that you go. They give out some of your rice, some of your basics. There's some food that they hand out to you. You are assigned to at the beginning. This little tent. Really, I mean that's what you see on TV when they set up these refugee camp. That's exactly like that. And later on, you move to this. A very basic apartment complex, if you will. There were some, and my mom had to, she ended up become a small food vendor. She's selling food, and I was selling stuff along the street. I used to sell bread to help my mom with living. We didn't have school. We did at one point, and then there were a protest, so they shut down the school. My day-to-day, which I will go to somebody's house tutoring math. That's all I learned. spend a lot of time outdoor. I mean, there's not much. You're just waiting. So the way the process works, that when you get to the island, you have to go to what called the interview process to apply for refugee status, and you have to provide your supporting documentation, which is to prove that, hey, you were giving difficulty back at home country, and your family was served, part of the South Vietnam, and along the American, so that you go through the whole process. But for me, looking back, really, I have, I don't have a whole lot, but I think it's probably the best childhood experience for me, growing up on the islands.
So you look back on it positively. You see that as something. I don't want to say beneficial is the right word, but you don't see it as a dark experience spending time at a refugee camp. You look at it knowing that you've gotten through it, and it brings it makes you feel good to think about those days.
Yes, it's really shaped me, the person I am today. I think I look at adversity, and I give it a different perspective look in life. And those 6 years taught me a lot, the value of freedom, which we risked the life for it, and hard work, which is, that's where I'm continuing to carry on that thought process into today, and appreciation in life, because I think sometimes we even me nowadays, sometimes I tend to forget a lot of things, but when I reflect back the time that I didn't have much, I feel that I'm very grateful for where I am today, and so yeah, I to me it's the best experience, and to me that's something that you have to live through it in order to get out the most in life.
I'm lucky enough that I always had a nice roof over my head. I was born in New York, and I never was living long term in a situation where I wasn't sure where I was going to live, or are we going to have food? What's the actual structure of the house going to be like? Is it an apartment? Is it a tent? I'm lucky enough where I was growing up in a nice house in Long Island, New York. And when my parents chose to go away, or when I would choose to go away on vacations when I got older, when I'm paying for it myself, I can live more minimalistically and experience harsher conditions by choice. It's not something that was forced upon me, but I recently started my entrance into camping and sleeping out of a tent, and had never really done that before for a long period of time. And yes, I still had my car there, so it wasn't like off the grid camping. We always had a car with us and could drive somewhere to shelter if we had to. But sometimes I forget, since I've always had the option of going back to a nice place, that people live like that in much harsher conditions perpetually, or they do it for long periods of time in hopes that they can progress into a better living situation. So I forget about that a lot. So it's something I need to remind myself of more.
Yeah, we spent 6 years there, and then from 1990 to 1996. 96, during that time, my mom didn't have enough supporting documentation, so she didn't make it through her interview process. So in 1996, we went back to Vietnam. So during that time, there's a lot of protests, and my mom decided to volunteer to go back. And they were telling us, all right, you volunteer to go back this period of time, because the camp been going on for too long. We need to shut down the camp throughout Southeast Asia, so people stop, coming to the camp. And the thing is that in my mom's family, there are there are two additional family members actually escaped, but they went on separate time, but they end up in the same island. There's her older brother and a younger sister. The older brother, who made it through the first round of interview process, he went on and immigrated to the U.S. He currently lives in Iowa right now, and he immigrated in 1993. But my mom didn't make it, so 1996 we went home. Her younger sister decided to stay, hold out until the last minute until they forced to close the camp. She enough didn't allow to go because she didn't volunteer in that time. So my mom did. So what 96 we went back to Vietnam and we stayed there for 2 years. So what happened is now I have to learn how to adapt to a new culture again because I left when I was 7, first grade. Now I'm went back after almost like after 6 years, didn't really have much schooling except some tutoring here and there. And now I'm going back trying to readapt into a society again. So I stayed there and I end up going to middle school, 7th grade, 8th grade. That's where I end. In 1998, after my mom gathered all the supporting documentation, she went to an interview process again and she was accepted in 1998. We immigrate to my uncle, which is her older brother, city, a small town called Sioux City, Iowa. And that time I was 15 at the time.
Sioux City, Iowa.
Yes, yes.
What was the most shocking part for you about coming into the United States and coming into American culture? Because I've always been an insider, so I've always had the American point of view, and sometimes you can get stuck in your own way of thinking. And you were old enough to remember what it was like to live in Vietnam and the refugee camp. Was there anything that was specifically more shocking to you, or you're like, why do people do this? Maybe thought it was stupid or something, things that were habits or just routine in America that weren't routine where you grew up?
I think the biggest shock for me, first, I was ecstatic, super excited. We spend all these years on the island, always dreaming about America. All we watch the American movie, we hear people talk about. It's a magical place, and that's the ultimate destination where you find, where your dream can come true, where you find freedom, where you can be anything if you want to be. So for me, the biggest shock was the weather. Here I am, spending all my childhood in a tropical place, and we arrived in April 10, 1998 at a small airport, Sioux City, Iowa. The cold was the thing that hit me the most. I think the rest in the back of my mind, I was so excited to come to America, to start my life over again, to begin to have this new beginning. It's almost to me, it's like rebirth, the American dream. People talk about that. And here I am living that dream. But the biggest challenge to me was the weather. And of course, secondly, will be the language barrier. Then I asked myself, here I am, 15 years old, trying to restart again my life. And being a teenager is you have to adapt to the society, the culture. And then the next thing you think about is, oh my God, I don't speak any English at all. How that gonna work? How am I gonna be to finish school, then go to college? So all these things in the back of my mind keep popping up. But that was the experience I got when I first arrived here in the U.S.
Yeah, it's funny that the weather was shocking to you, because normally, if you're talking to someone, if you go out to a bar or a happy hour, you go just hanging out with friends, and someone starts talking about the weather, it's usually because you've run out of things to say, because everyone has lived around here, usually that you're talking to. And so the weather's kind of this signal as, all right, this conversation's about to get boring or we should leave. And coming to Iowa from Vietnam, and the weather being one of the most fascinating things about it, that seems it makes sense. It's also kind of funny just knowing like the patterns of American conversation.
Yes, so that, and then going to high school, I remember there's a school, the school I went to called West High School. I really had been over 20 years, but my plan the next 2 or 3 years, I would like to visit that. I want to walk the street that the area that's I wait for the bus, not knowing how to speak English, and then taking ESL classes at the beginning. It just learn how to eat a Subway sandwich at the beginning was challenging. It was fun. It's not challenging. It was a very different experience.
Learning
So the
learning
food
how to eat
itself.
learning how to eat a Subway sandwich, you said?
Yeah, a cold sandwich because we used to eat everything is hot. So now here I am.
Ah,
You have a cold sandwich. It was difficult at the beginning and try to adapt. Um, and what else?
toasted is
Um,
always better. People that don't get
yeah,
their sandwiches toasted are psychos. I question their sanity.
but yeah, I spent some time in Suzy, Iowa, before we moved. So I spent about a year there. And then my mom knows somebody in Richmond, and that's where we moved to Richmond in '99. I went to high school here and went away for college a little bit down in Savannah, Georgia, and came back. And here I am. I've been in Richmond, been my hometown for the last over 20 years or so.
And Richmond is where Kinis is based out of, correct?
That is correct. Yes. So yeah,
So
I want to
I was going to
go ahead.
say, this is a little bit of a jump from high school, but what was your entrance into the interest in barefoot walking shoes before you even started the business, Kinis? What drew you to barefoot walking shoes? What got you interested? Was it a movie, book, conversation? What was your beginnings?
To be honest with you, I mean, when I moved here in 1998, I think after spending 6 years, so I'm very excited when I first moved here because now I have first pair of sneaker again, the Nike shoe and everything, because I never owned a pair in my entire life. We either barefoot or have little sandal, but now, after seeing everything on TV or seeing other people, now I actually have a pair of sneakers. So that was a very exciting moment for me.
So
But fast forward,
In Vietnam, you never had sneakers before you came here.
no,
So
I either sandal. That's most of the time, and when I was living on the refugee camp, it's mainly barefoot. Yes,
barefoot and sandals, and so yeah, I
yes.
could see how that could plant a seed early on for some sort of barefoot walking footwear.
Yes, so that's very normal for me, and we spend I spend a lot of time playing soccer barefoot on the island with my buddies. But now, so when I moved to Richmond, of course, you learn to adapt to the American culture, society. You wearing shoes. Shoe is just is a norm. Not wearing shoe is considered abnormal. So you wearing shoes like everybody else. So fast forward to that, up into through my entire high school and college, everything else. I'm just pretty normal. I'm just having shoes like everyone else. But fast forward to 2016, that's really thing starting to happen for me with my personal injury. So I'm very active. I like to stay active, do some sort of exercise here and there. But up until 2016, that when I got into running a little bit. Because I like to stay active, and then when I started to do about anywhere from 10 to 15 miles a week, then a couple of weeks into running, that's where I start to develop ankle issue, shin splint, heel pain, all these things. And so my first thought process, well, I probably need a new pair of running shoe because to be honest, I'm not a big fan of running, but because now I feel as I get older, I want to do more cardio. It's a lot more healthy for me. So my first thought was, I need a new pair of running shoe. I went out, purchased all these pair of running shoe, the Nike running shoe, the Adidas, and none of that helped. The problem persists and it getting worse. I got to the point I couldn't run anymore, and that's where I started to do a lot of research, trying to figure out what happened to me, because I am in the opinion that I think if you listen to your body and a lot, unless you have really the very special situation, then you see a doctor. But
Hmm.
other than that, you should be the body is strong enough to cure itself, to heal itself in a way. I do a lot of research, and that's where I came a lot to a study that really talk about the shoe that causing the problem. That because I didn't have this problem before. So I came across a book Born to Run, where the author talk about this group of people in Mexico that they can run ultra marathon with something very thin sandal. That really excite me again. That's remind me of my time playing soccer barefoot because I used to be to do that, but now here I am, barely run. I have the most expensive running shoe. I try all the things and nothing worked. So that really, the more I do research, the more I start to come to realization, wait a minute, it's really the shoe that causing me all these problems. So with that in mind, I couldn't find a product that really helped me. At that point, I just say, all right, I just want to fix my own problem. I want to be able to find a long-term sustainable solution. I didn't want to go see podiatrist. I didn't want to go wear orthotic. I don't want to rely on I consider artificial fix, a short-term fix. So that's really, and during that time I was, enrolled in an MBA program, and one of the class is they were teaching us about design thinking. And that really happened to be the same time I'm trying to tinkering with the idea of maybe making a shoe that really fixed my own personal problem, not about there's nothing about the business to relate to that. And the more I dive into it, the more I realize that, hey, there's an opportunity here for us to create something that not only helping me, but there's many other folk who probably experience the same thing that I'm experiencing, that can help them as well. So that is where really the inception of Kinis itself.
Yeah, you mentioned making a shoe to fix your own personal problems. And it seems like that's the root of a lot of great inventions and innovations, is that someone has a problem, or, maybe they're lazy and they want to invent something that will allow them to spend less time and actually make it more efficient. And not that that's what you did. You were more the former. You had a problem and you invented something that you wanted to fix, and then as a result of fixing a personal problem, you realize that other people are having this problem too, through conversations, through posting about it. People, I'm sure, were asking you what's on your foot when you're walking through the streets, which I've gotten in Brooklyn 5 or 6 times in the past 6 months walking around. Every week or so, someone asks me what's on my foot, and I always tell them Kinis and where they can go get it. And yeah, it seems like that's a good starting point if you're trying to create content or create a product, is to fix a problem of your own first, and then for content, to make the content that you enjoy. What's a conversation that you want to listen to, or what do you really have fun doing, and then to work from there, instead of trying to start big first and then pare it down into a product.
Yeah, I mean, for me, I just want to regain the strength that I lost over the last 20 years. I just want to be able to move. We talk a lot about moving naturally. So during this time, I spent a lot of time study about foot biomechanics, body mechanics, understanding the foot anatomy. And there's so many research that anyone can, get online and spend 10, 15 minutes to be able to pull a lot of research. These are the things that, now looking back, no, not a single shoe company tell you about. And because everybody in the business is telling you, hey, buy this shoe. I'm just an average consumer. When I go out buy a pair of shoe, the one thing in the back of my mind back then, comfort and style. Those are the things and that's what we see there everywhere we turn. There's ad that telling, hey, more comfort, but nobody really teach you, wait a minute, that's not actually in the long term, that's not good for us. Over the last 50 years, you look at all the combined, all these big shoe company. Everybody just talking about more cushion, more comfort, but no one, not a single of them talk about, hey, wait a minute, we need to understand the body mechanic, because the human body went over 2 million years evolution to be who we are today. Everything what we create the last 50 years is single-handedly changed the way we move as a society, as a species. Because all we want to looking for that short-term fix, comfort, and we forget that, hey, we don't let our feet to move the way they were designed, because the human feet are 25% bone in our bodies, and our feet is very complicated. It's have been engineered to perfect, to help us progress. And you look at in the early day, you look at our ancestor, they didn't have shoe. I'm not promoting the idea that nowadays people should take off their shoe and run around barefoot. I'm not saying that. But I'm saying that we do not need all the artificial art support. cushion to help us move every day. We don't need that.
So you were studying earlier civilizations and even primitive civilizations that are still around today, and looking at how are they running and walking barefoot, what are the benefits, and reading material, researching material on how to transform that into a barefoot shoe for yourself at first, and eventually became Kinis.
Exactly. So yes, I look at myself as case study because that's what I did. I grew up, didn't have shoe, and my feet were healthy. I can go out and spend whole day outdoor. And I think if you look back, even in the US, if you look back, the older generation, you look at people in their 50s, 60s, they'll tell you that they grown up, they didn't have shoe. Like, I'm looking at my kid nowadays, they have all these shoes, but I'm looking at even my generation, my parent generation, maybe your parent generation. People who grew up in the 60s and 50s, they would love to be outside, play barefoot.
Mm.
That's what we are built. That's what we are, the human body designed to do. It's just nowadays, it's just the fact that we have been told, we have the preconceived notion that we need shoe, we need support,
Mm.
we need cushion for everything we do in life, which is
So what
the
is it
opposite.
specific? Yeah. What is it specifically about the make and mechanics of a barefoot shoe that is better for the biomechanics of the human body? If you were to explain to someone why a barefoot walking shoe is better for you over the long term than let's say a Nike walking shoe with much more cushion, it's probably narrower. What are some of the things? Is it just the cushion and the narrowness? Is there something else that we're tapping into when we're walking barefoot? What did you find in your research?
So what I learned, the first thing first, that anytime you look at human body flat, which is to say flat, when you wear barefoot or you wear something that is considered minimalist, that means your center of gravity is dead on the center. There's a stack. Everything, what I've referred to, everything stacked top to bottom. Um, we are not leaning forward the front. When you wear something that have a lift in the back of the heel, so basically it changes the posture. That means you lean toward the front. That means you are putting pressure more on your knee, your ankle, and your back. Your posture out of whack at that point. That's the first thing that change. So when that changes, that means every time you walk, your knee, your back, your ankle have to compensate for that. So we all walking leaning toward the front. Now, if you look at the shoe anatomy, we refer to the narrow toe box. Typically, the foot itself is like to display. The more you display, the more you have contact, so give you stability and balance. So a lot of the shoe, modern athletic shoe is narrow. So what I mean, we are artificially deform the foot, which we compress all the toe with the narrow toe box, which hinder our ability to use the big toe, which is the big toe that used as a push-up. So these are the research that I look at and also experience myself. I'm not a doctor, I'm not a podiatrist, but the research that allow me to understanding the most basic way that the foot designed to move. The other thing that
Go ahead. Go ahead.
The other thing I talk about, the cushion support, okay, that I'm a firm believer that if you look at the foot itself, there's an arch in there. There's a reason why there's an arch in our foot. The arch acting is designed to act as a shock absorbing mechanism. So when you land on the midfoot, so all the energy that you hit the ground being absorbed to the arch. So that extra energy is not going to end up in your knee, your back, or your ankle. But when you wear something with an arch support, the analogy that you support something, you make it weak over time. And then that's why people have a collapsed arch. I'm not saying a minimalist or barefoot shoe for everyone, but I'm saying for the majority of the population, we are born with normal and healthy feet. It's just the way we are conditioned. We put them in, I call a cast, which now is the feet no longer function. It's just a shoe.
Yeah.
We have no.
So the typical running shoe like Nike, Adidas, Reebok, the arch and the artificial cushion is giving us something that we don't need. For most people, if we were walking around barefoot, our body has built-in mechanisms to adapt. And then if we're walking around in arches all the time, or arch assistance with 99.9% of shoes that are built today, it's realigning our bodies to make us weaker in a way. It's taking away the barefoot mechanics that we were born with the ability to tap into. And then when you have that artificial arch and the constant support, the reason why people may have pain barefoot could be because they're so used to the arch and having that support all the time.
That is correct. I mean, it's just like it's an addiction, because now that's why all shoe company, the way they market a product is more comfort, more support. You don't need more, you need less, because the more you do it, the more you constantly altering the body natural biomechanics. And that's something, I keep telling folks we're not telling people go run barefoot. That's not the case. I'm just saying all you have to do is walk in something that minimalist in a way. It doesn't have to be barefoot. Get away from these artificial support and let the foot move naturally. When you can do that, we can fix the problem with the knee, the back, the alignment issue, the posture issue. So these are the things that anyone can do at home.
So that's something I wanted to ask you is, are barefoot shoes and the Kinis Barefoot Shoes in particular, are these designed for running? Or should you be running in these, or could you if you wanted to? Because I'm not a big runner. I lift in Kinis shoes, and I've done Muay Thai. I'll walk around in the Lucy's right here. This is the model that I have of the Lucy. But I'm not a runner just because I don't really enjoy it. I ran a lot in my college baseball days and kind of got sick of it. But is running something that you would advise in barefoot shoes? Do you have to work up to it? What's been your experience with running?
For the most part, we do not recommend running, because I think the reason we say what we say, because ultimately, if someone that's not understanding, or if they spend many years in these cushioned shoe, we can reassure the feet is not strong enough to absorb the impact force. So all our product is not a running product, but the best thing you can do is walking them. By walking them, you slowly regain the strength back. And if for me personally, when I run, I do run in our products because I have been trained. My body has been in year training. Can you run? The answer is yes. But if I just want to make clear that we say that we do not recommend running. The best thing you can do, anyone, it doesn't matter you're an athlete or just someone looking to be more active. The best thing you can do for your body, walk in our product. Because I think walking our product, you start to slowly regain the strength, slowly correct the posture, correct the alignment again, and you can feel the ground. The one thing that I have not mentioned, that if you wear something thick, you lose the ability to feel the ground. The ground is, at the bottom of our feet, there are over 200,000 nerve endings, so we can send the environment. So the spatial relationship, we know where we are. But when we wear something thick, we lose that. We have no idea. We just walk everywhere, but when you wear something minimalist, and that's why when you wear barefoot, we're very conscious where we're landing. We're conscious about the landing, the posture. So it's very important for us as species to tap into our primitive part of us, which is send the environment the way when we walk in the most natural way.
Yeah, I've had the experience of really feeling the ground with the Lucy's. So back in May, I hiked this trail called the Narrows in Zion National Park, and it's filled with water up to your waist at some points. So you're walking through water around your ankles almost the whole time, but then sometimes you're wading through it, and sometimes for 100 feet, sometimes for 500-600 feet. And I was doing that entire hike in the Lucy Barefoot Shoe by Kinis. And before that, they offered the option, before you even start the hike, they offered to rent out these special shoes that were much harder. They almost looked like a flat basketball shoe, like almost like a high top Converse and a walking stick. And I decided to go in the Kinis shoes because I had been hiking on other trails the day before in Zion and the Grand Canyon and felt great. And walking over these rocks, even with water, these were, soaking wet rocks. So it was very slippery at some points. I felt my feet almost gripping the rocks like hands. Like my foot would like go over a rock and I would be able to slightly grip it because I had the flexibility on the bottom of the shoe to contour with the rocks. And I saw a bunch of people slipping with the sneakers that were rented out, even with the walking stick. I think I might have slipped once at a point where it was very slippery, but other than that, I was walking over rocks underwater, going through, sand, some very slippery points, and it was a great time. I really felt feeling the ground when you said that. It reminded me of that hike in Zion in the Narrows.
That's awesome. That's an awesome. Thank you so much for sharing. Because ultimately, our features like you mold to the object. Could be the rock, could be the tree root. You mold to that. Because I think the bottom are designed to be as flexible as possible. So think about your feet just grabbing the ground, feeling the ground. That's something that you look at all the shoes in the market. They make them thicker and thicker. And when you make them that way, you lose the control. You have zero control over the surface and where you foot in your land. So that's what all our products are designed to allow for the maximum ground contact in a way that you feel the ground.
Yeah, and even wearing them every day, walking on the sidewalks in Brooklyn, I have less pain in my foot. I had a nagging injury under my left big toe for a while. I had broken my metatarsal a couple times when I was younger, and it just was like this lingering pain under my toe. And after a few months, it kind of just went away when I was wearing the Barefoot shoe. I walk around every day for at least 30 minutes, sometimes multiple times a day. I'll work out in them. And about 3-4 months into buying my first pair of Kinis, I realized that I no longer had that pain. And I was doing Muay Thai too. I still am practicing Muay Thai. So I would hit my toe, once every 2 weeks and have a pain in my toe. And it doesn't linger really. I feel like it almost gives my toes more of a workout to regain the strength after stubbing it at Muay Thai or checking someone's kick and I take it off the toe. I feel like walking in the Barefoot shoe has given me better recovery between Muay Thai sessions, and then also an overall dulling down of the pain that I would normally feel under my left big toe. So I've had a great experience with them.
That's awesome. You mentioned something that gives your toe a lot of freedom, and that's why we made a toe box, and why we make the toe box very wide. So that means the idea when you wear the shoe, you should be to wiggle your toe inside. Your toes are free to move in the most natural way. And you look at a lot of shoe, a lot of the traditional, I call athletic shoe, they tend to the front of it lift off a little bit, which now it because everything will compress together now, but our shoe is flat to the ground. I mean, now your toe actually engaging. Your big toe is very important. We can't really stand if we lose a big toe.
That sounds sweet. So we left off, you were talking about the toe box built specifically for the Kinis shoe.
Yeah, in our products, in any minimalist shoe product that out on the market, what we're saying that we want to make the toe box as wide as possible. So when you wear a minimalist shoe, you should be able to wiggle your toe inside of that. And that's something that gives you the freedom of moving the most natural way. That's where you can engage the big toe. That is a direct contradiction with a traditional athletic shoe, where you look at the front of the toe, the almost like they pointing up, because that caused by a very narrow toe box. Where we squeeze all the toe together, and that sometimes people get bunion that way. Sometimes they have a lot of toe
Mm.
related issue, and sometimes people also create a lot of pressure point between the midfoot and the heel area as well. So that's
Mm.
something that, for me personally, when I make that transition, one thing I realize away that I have full freedom of my toes, and I can, especially while I was lifting weight, I can, when I squat, I can do deadlift. I know that I can grip the ground with my
Mm.
toes. Before I couldn't do that in a traditional athletic shoe.
Yeah, and I always took off my, or I don't want to say always, but most of the time I would take off my sneakers to deadlift and squat because it felt better. I felt like I was able to get into the positions that I needed to more easily, and I feel that way also with the barefoot shoe. And it's funny, I don't know if you've had this experience, but I've been traveling a couple times and I didn't have the Kinis shoes with me. And so I had my regular running shoes. And when I was doing squatting exercises, I almost felt like I was cheating because I had done it so long without any sort of arch or artificial lift. And I was in my Nikes and I'm like, this is so much easier. And having not done this with support in 12
Yeah.
months or however long it was, doing kettlebell squats and deadlifts, I really was able to feel how much the regular shoes assist you, and you don't even realize it unless you take them off.
100%. And then the other thing create a lot of unstable condition. I mean, if you lift you off the ground, so the more you're off the ground, and then you also that toe pointing up, so it create instability along the way as well. So yeah, I mean, Kinis been around. So this is our 4 years anniversary. We currently have three products in the market. We start with the first product, which is the Nomad, which is the sock-like footwear. I remember,
Yeah, I have that right
yes.
here
So
too.
that is
This is the first one that I
the
bought.
first one, the closest to being barefoot. And to me, I that's still the product that I train in. I walk in them. I go hiking in them. I go rock climbing in them as well. So whenever I go rock climbing,
Mm.
we have a local rock climbing indoor place, and they always try to give me that shoe, which is super narrow. I climb in the Nomad, or sometimes I climb barefoot. They kick me out a few times. uh, but there's
Yeah.
just so much freedom you climb barefoot, because I tell you that you can feel, you can grab your toe, you can bend. We talk about the ability to mold every single toe, almost like you in the control of your foot independently as you climb up. It's just the most incredible experience. I wish there are more places that can allow people go in there to climb barefoot. And I asked them why. They say, oh, sanitary reason. It just I find it's fascinating to climb barefoot.
Yeah, and I want to give a shout out to Dave Robinson because he's the one who turned me on to Kinis shoes. And you also, there's pictures of Dave on the website. I know he's also a spokesperson, I believe, for Kinis, or he reps the brand
Yes, yes.
for the Spartan races.
Absolutely. So Dave and I go back 3 years ago. So when I first started out, Kenneth, and I saw one of Dave post on IGs, and I think maybe a barefoot or something, and I reached out to him, and he lived locally, so that's how we got connected, and we've been friends and Spartan buddies. And then he's the guy that got me into Spartan race. I show up to Spartan race with a Nomad, and I remember. That's it. The first time, it's my first Spartan race ever. I show up and everybody wearing these Spartan shoes and running shoe and all that kind of shoe. And I asked me, "Where are your shoe?" And I say, "This is my shoe." And I finished the race, and that was the best experience ever. And since then, there's many of other athletes who also compete in Spartan race. And I want to clarify a couple of things. We say that don't run a product because, like I say, we want to make sure that we don't want to miscommunicate to the consumer, to everyone, that, hey, this is something that you can run. No. If you're not trained, if you not give yourself a proper transition time, and you decide that this is a cool idea, and I'm go out and buy a Kinis minimalist run, and I'll go out and run a 5 mile. pretty sure that the next day you hurt yourself along the way, and that's the last thing um, we want to happen to anyone else. So if you something that this is something that you find that you want to do, please reach out to us. We have done it multiple times. We know the do and don't. We're more than happy to share with you the proper training process, the proper transition process, so you can do successfully and safely.
Yeah, so I've been friends with Dave for a while. We go back about 5 or 6 years, and I went to University of Richmond, and I met him in the gym when I was training for baseball at the time, and we had struck up a relationship and became friends through his job as a financial advisor. And then about this is probably 18, 20 months ago, I had started taking Muay Thai lessons outside because the gyms were closed. So I was doing one-on-ones with my teacher, Houston Ariaga, who was in Brooklyn at the time. And I was doing them in sneakers, in my regular sneakers. And I felt weird to be kicking in sneakers, and just didn't feel like I had a great grip, and I had done some barefoot kicking inside in my apartment. I have a mat in my apartment where I can do shadow boxing, air kicks, and I felt so much better barefoot. And then I saw a post that Dave had thrown up wearing the Kinis shoes, and I was thinking about doing barefoot training, just completely barefoot outside for Muay Thai, but there's so many acorns on the ground in Prospect Park. I tried it once and I was just cursing half the time. I was like, fuck this. Like I kept stepping on acorns. I would like throw a kick, land, and step on an acorn. I'm like, all right, I need something that's not a sneaker. I saw the Kinis shoes on Dave's IG page and then ordered a pair, but he was the first person, he was the person I found out about Kinis through, and then continued to use them for about 6 months until gyms opened back up, where now we can do it barefoot inside, but I still use them to walk around and train outside when I get out.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Yeah. And just a great community around here in Richmond. And I think that we always consider, and I think I start Kinesis is at the end of the day is with a mission that, hey, the idea that we want to create a movement that help people move naturally. It worked for me, and I think a lot of folks are also in my same situation, basically because
Mm-hmm.
now there's no other alternative, because everywhere that you go, any shoe company you go is about selling you the most expensive shoe. But what we trying to do, Ken, is hey, let us give you this is the other side of the story that we call the most the human movement side story. We want to share with you, and people make the decision at the end of the day what product they think is fit that for you. But up to this point, it's mainly there's only one side: comfort, more cushion, more support. And we say,
Mm-hmm.
hey, wait a minute, there's got to be more than that. And that's what we're trying to do every day: is sharing the knowledge that we learn along the way, the knowledge that also the mistake, the experience we went through, how difficult it is at the beginning for me to make that transition back. But now I feel like I'm more in tune with my body than ever before in my life. I was able to, I enjoy the freedom, enjoy that, knowing the fact that, hey, the product that we create is truly helping somebody to regain the ability to move in the most natural way. So for
Mm-hmm.
us, is our number one objective is not to create the most comfortable shoe. It's to create a product that's just give you the bare minimum protection. But that comfort is
Mm-hmm.
something that you gain as you start to make that transition. The comfort is in your feet, not through the shoe.
Yeah. So can you talk a little bit about how you developed the actual cloth and fiber for the Kinis shoe? Because I understand there was a lot of trial and error. You were producing it yourself, and then you moved production over to China.
Yes.
I even heard you say on a podcast that the Spectra fiber that you use is stronger than Kevlar.
Yes.
Is that true?
That is correct. So yeah, to create our first product is the Nomad, which is the barefoot socks. And now I have zero background in shoe designing. I have no idea. I don't know how to design a shoe. My background, my professional background is an architect. So I would train, I went to school to become an architect. That's what I did. I know design office building. But at the time when I embarked on this journey to create a shoe, I had zero knowledge about shoe. I don't know how shoe design. I don't even know what to call the certain part of the shoe. So at the beginning, what I did was, I went to a local art and craft store and buys a bunch of foam that people use to make art and craft. I take that and I cut
Mm.
the different pieces and I glue to the bottom of my socks. And that's where I decided, all right, I'm gonna take off my shoe and I'm glued to the sock and walk around with this thing. At the beginning, I said, well, my feet are weak. I'm not going to walk around with my socks all day. It's going to hurt like crazy. So that's what I did. So that's why. So I went out and cut about a bunch of foam, and I go to the gym. I would give out to everybody at the gym or the trainer, and hey, there's a little adhesive, and I'll try that. Try this whole new barefoot thing. Um, Everybody think that I'm crazy. I'm pretty sure they end up not doing it, but it with me, I want to see if that something worked. So I went and did that, and then I decided that maybe I can make this thing domestically. So I went out and contact a sock company. I would spend hour and hour on the phone calling everyone. So along the North Carolina and South Carolina, there used to be a textile hub. So I looked them up and I found a company. And literally, I was trying to call in this guy. His name is Brian Mayo, a company called Mayo Knitting in North Carolina. For literally 3 months,
Mm.
finally, he picked up the phone and I told him, hey, I want to make this sock shoe, somewhere in between. He said, hey, and at that point, I make a really primitive or very, prototype that I made by binding a bunch of stuff and glue it together. And he said, all right, well, come on down and see what we can do for you. So I went out and met with him. At this point, I have no idea how even different material they use for the socks. So after working with him for a couple months, he was able to help me make the socks. And that's the first part. And now I say, all right, well, we need to add the rubber to the bottom of this. So I didn't know how to, so I do a lot of research, and I found a company who make this machine. This machine are designed to make silk sprinting for shirt, for logo. And I called them up. I told them that I want to do this, rubber coating at the bottom because I would figure out that I want to make this
Mm.
product domestically and I can make it in my garage. So I called them. I found a company in California. I flew there a couple of times, talked to the guy, the owner, and at the beginning, still, everything is he's thinking you fucking crazy, man. This, what are we? I mean, this is
That's
you
funny.
own us. You're making a footwear product with that machine. So after convincing multiple times, and he decided, all right, well, it'll cost you 20K. So at that point, I decided, all right, we go all in with this one to see how this worked. So I was laid off from my job at the time. I was working as a director of engineering for a company, and my company got acquired, and they went in, they changed the whole management team. So they will let me go because I want to bring down people. Long story short, so at that point, I said, all right, well, I don't have a job anymore, so I started this whole thing. I have the socks now. I need to figure out how to make it. So I went in and cashed out my 401k money, took 20K and bought a machine. I bought a machine.
Takes a lot of
Yeah,
nuts.
yeah. At this point, that's why going back to the whole story growing up and escaping and all that. I said, I risked my life already. So what else to do this? So I went all in and I got a machine installed in my garage. I got an air compressor hook up. Electrician came over, hook up air compressor, and here I am. So I have this custom made, jig that can apply the coating, which he did a little coating rub out on what you to the bottom of the sock. So I would spend hours and hours in my garage. I have the compressor set up. I have this machine that have 6 rotating arm. One arm, the first operation, apply the coating, and then the second operation apply the dot, and then go to this another arm, will heat it up and dry it. Sounds simple, but it's not. So I would spend hour and hour. So what I learned that the the socks are made of material called polyester, and then the ink I used at the time, which I didn't know any better. The ink they used were for clothing apparel, which is not the same type ink or rubber, if I call now, at the bottom of the shoe because it's two different material. The one is more
Mm.
industrial grade, the other one more just on your shirt. So I try to take something that for apparel and try to put at the bottom the socks, and then try to have people work out in these. So I would spend, God know, hours and hours in my garage, 10 to 12 hours a day working it. And then what I learned is it will take a certain temperature for the ink to heat up in order to cure properly. But there's a then within that temperature frame, there's about 5 or 10 degree difference before the sock will melt. So that it's not
Mm.
hot.
So you had a
Yeah,
small
yes,
window.
to work with. I didn't know. So I try, I said, what is this going on? It's like so I look up everything. I start to look up different gel that can apply to the outside so it doesn't burn the socks. And if it doesn't burn the sock, and then it become it too it doesn't burn the sock, but it's not applying enough heat, so it's not dry on the outside. Long story short, hours and hours trying testing, and then I have to call the ink company, go around, ask them, all right, I need something stronger. So they put me to the chemist. I talked to the chemist, they mix a different ink. I went and tried again. Finally, after burning, I literally burned hundreds of socks to make a pair. Then I take that pair, I'll go to the logo gym. I'll say, guy, this is a new barefoot socks. That, this whole idea of barefoot, I want you to try. And they say, all right, they keep seeing me here again. So they try, and as soon as they try it on, do a Turkish get up or kettlebell swing, the weight, you take somebody 180 pounds, you put some weight on it, and they start to move. Oh, and just come right
Mm.
off. So here we're back to square one again. So I go back to my garage again, call up the guy again.
And since the machine was burning the shoes, so as a trick to get more people to adopt the Kinis, this is what I would have done. I would have said, "Hey, give me your sneakers, and you could try these on." And so they try the Kinis on. I have their sneakers, and then I'd use my machine at home to burn their sneakers, so they had no choice but to use the Kinis shoes. And that would have been my method of adoption: is that I will you either buy or burn. That would be my slogan.
That's pretty good. That I wish I thought of that, but I wasn't smart enough to think of that. So I went back to my garage like a crazy experience. I don't know why I don't know. So I will have machine, and then I'll Google right next to it, or I'll YouTube right next to it. Literally, that's how I learn everything. And
It's the best way.
I
YouTube
call YouTube,
University.
and that's exactly. I learned different language. I learned different material. So long story, after almost 3 months or so, fail experience in my garage, I decided that's all right. At that point, I decided that we need to take this operation overseas, because in order for us to make something that consider industrial use or have some sort of durability, we need to take this overseas. So I sold the machine. I sold that for $8,000. I lost 12K in 3 months, and the guy from New York coming down, he bought it. I gave him a air compressor for free as well. So I took that $8,000 and then decided to go to China to set up an overseas operation. Well, I don't know anybody in China, so I have to Google everything. So I start to contact all the supply online and say, all right, we have a company, but we didn't have a company. I'm the only person in the company, but I would say that we have a 5 or 6 of us. We want to do this. So they will talk to
That's a
me.
trick that I use. That's a trick that I use sometimes over email. Is when I'm talking to someone who's interested in sponsoring the podcast or something business related, I always say we or us, like making Auxoro like a team, even though it's mostly me. I do have Manoa is a great videographer. He's amazing. And then I also use another guy, Alex, to help me out with audio, but I'll always try to make myself seem way bigger than I am to try to trick people into working with me. And then my rationale is that if I deliver a good product, then they're not going to care. So I just talk about myself like I'm running like Amazon or something, and it's just a one person podcast.
That's exactly the strategy I use, because that's the only way. Because when you deal with an overseas operation like that, these guys will usually take a 10,000 pair order or 50,000 pair order. Nobody want to work with a startup who making something in between, neither shoe or sock. So that way it was challenging. So before I left, after I learned a lot about the socks, the material, I know that in order for this work, we need to have to come up with something stronger than socks. So luckily, so I thought do a lot of research, and I came across a material called Spectra. Well, Spectra, and it happened to be that Honeywell have a plant right outside in my hometown, high performance material division. So I reached out to them and told them what I want to do, and went out, and they were very
And Honeywell makes
yes,
Spectra.
yes,
They're the okay.
yes. That's part of their yes, one of their product. Yes. So I went out and they were very generous to have a meeting with me, and I told them what I do. And this is the first time anybody actually used their product to make a socks before. Now, Spectra is a material that's by pound for pound is 15 times stronger than steel. It's developed to use it in
Oh wow.
industrial application, and they use this to make bullet vest for the law enforcement. That's how strong material. It's stronger than Kevlar. So I went out and talked to them, and got in touch with their team, and they were able to send me some sample. And we are up to this point, I think we're the only person that use their products. And I went over to China, first time in China, and met with their team in Shanghai and worked with the engineer. But China, again, that's that I can save that for another conversation because I learned a lot in China. Now I'm Vietnamese, I'm not Chinese, so I went to China. I blend in, but I don't speak the language, so that's my challenge. So I went out and I have to travel from Shanghai all the way to Hong Kong, visit every single factory. I would spend a month in China. Again, going to every factory, telling them what we do. A lot of people think I'm crazy. Again, it's only the we. I would set up different email address that a marketing person, a designer person that I go back to hotel. I will switch a different email address, different title. That's how I send my email to different team. But
you have your girlfriend answer the phone as your secretary or something, and then you're just like, wait, one moment, he'll be right here.
yeah.
And then she just hands you it over.
But that I went in, and luckily, I were able to get connect with some really very generous people, people who believe in Kinis from the beginning. And we've been working together since 2018, and a lot of mistake along the way. We learned a lot along the way, and I think the beauty of this, looking back, that since I didn't have any shoe or footwear experience, it got it where we are because we look at footwear from a different perspective.
Yeah, it's a lot of trial, error, and burns to get through to put out the product that you have today. And I know you have a hard cutoff in a few minutes. I wanted to ask you one more thing, which is, do you envision Kinis as a company that will extend barefoot footwear into the realm of just the casual walking shoe? So someone that is not looking for fitness or not, maybe even not concerned about fitness, but they want to wear it out at night per se, instead of boots or Converse. Do you envision partnering with people to make it something that could replace a casual walking shoe, even for the people that are not concerned with fitness?
Absolutely, and that's our long-term goal. Our long-term goal is to be able to bring a product to as many people as possible. And you can see that we've been around for 4 years, but we only have 3 products. And the reason for that is because we want to focus on talking about the reason why we do what we do. So to your question, the Lucy is an everyday active shoe. That shoe is for everyone, anyone. We have customer and they're 80 years old wearing the Lucy, and the Lucy and the Polo Pro, they both received the American approval, the seal of approval from the American Podiatric Medical Association. So we look at, and that's why we will only continue to refine the products. Our products, yes, they are depend on what the application for, but when you look at an everyday shoe for everyone and anyone, the Lucy Active shoe is something we recommend. You don't have to be an athlete, you don't have to train, but the best thing you can do for your body is to walk in a product that promote that natural foot and body biomechanic, which is the Lucy.
Yeah, I've worn these out a couple times in place of boots, and it looks good. I wear a lot of black, so I like the offset of the black and cream. And I could even see a lot of for future partnerships down the line, stand-up comedians, music artists, people that are on their feet all the time
Yeah.
performing on stage that would, I'm sure, have a lot of foot problems. And then once you conquer barefoot walking shoes on Earth, then that's when you partner with Elon Musk, and then you make a barefoot walking spacesuit for
Yeah.
Mars. The first people to step on Mars will be wearing a Kinis Barefoot spacesuit.
That would be awesome. I think I think that the future for us is really bring technology into our products, and that's something that we're discussing already. And what we want to do is bring sensor into our footwear products. That's an option for people. I mean, there are products for everyone, but I think we can, with technology and the the sensor market actually growing, and that's something that we look into in the future, bring a smart footwear
Mhm.
product to the market that will collect data and analyze and give you the end user the right feedback, and they can make adjustment as that fit for them. But yeah, we are excited about the future, and I think I think barefoot training or barefoot walking is not something new, but I think in the last 50 years has been in the back burner. But I think it's now to bring that concept back and have it deliver positive impact to as many people as possible.
Thank you so much, Vincent, for your time. It really was a pleasure. Where can people find Kinis and follow Kinis?
Yeah, absolutely. We are at kinis.com, kinis.com, and you can follow us on Kinis Barefoot on Instagram. We're very active. We have a lot of video to talk about, the reason why it's important for us to move in the most natural way.
Yeah, guys, go check it out. I'll put something in the link of the podcast description wherever you're watching or listening to this as well. And thank you again so much, Vincent, for your time. I really appreciate it.
Thank you so much, Zach, for having me on. Thank you again, the audience, for allowing us to share our story with everyone.